It's going to work right here. Yeah. All right. So my name is Evan Strong. I make videos like this, generally geared around the lacing of our shoes, the tying of our shoes, and the things within all the clothing that we wear in modern 2024. Today's the 13th of September, 2024, and how the designs within those things, the materials within those things, alter the way that our body naturally functions. And I go into very great depth on how simple the body is to just work. And the body is designed to work, and it just does its thing. It does its rotations, it does its balance, it does a lot of stuff on its own, and we can't tell our bodies what to do. We are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. And I can't tell my body what to do, he can't tell his body what to do, and she can't tell her body what to do. They just work, and they just work in one way, in one position, the way they're designed to work. So, prerequisites that I always state are to lace your shoes with my technique found within where my content is placed in many places within there, including tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside to reinforce that internal rotation traveling up the entirety of the body. Pairing that with removing the tags stemming at the tongues of your shoes up through every item of clothing that you ever place on you. And I've gone into very, 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 very great depth on what all those things do individually. And again, this is all universal truth. Zero opinion in this. Any human on any part of the globe could do these things within their own clothing, to their own body, and it goes for everybody within your own situation. So, one big thing that people talk about a lot is resting, right? They talk about sitting down and resting, and how you need to kind of let your muscles almost deactivate. Well, I've talked about the truth many times about how the body needs to be in a constant activated position. That does not mean you are an athlete and you do activities, but it means your muscles are turned on. The muscles, like the nervous system within the body, the nerve endings of that allow the body to move, they need to be constantly turned on and activated to where they can just work at any moment. And what happens is when people are focusing on trying to rest, what they will do is place their body in a very unnatural position to where it's deactivating muscles. They will be sleeping and having a pillow under their head, which I've gone into, how that actually anteriorly rotates your pelvis, and it puts your shoulders into external rotation, and your feet then go into external rotation following your pelvis. The body is all connected, so anytime anything gets placed out of alignment, everything does. And so people who will go take a nap, but using a pillow, they can't breathe proper while they sleep. Again, in a neutral internal rotation position, natural human design, how we would be until clothing alters our natural functioning, there's no need to have a pillow under your head. In fact, it's actually very damaging to the natural function of your body to sleep with a pillow under your head. If I were in internal rotation, naturally, things like the tag in the rear of the shirt that I've gone over will cause you to be more in a position that looks as though you have a pillow under your head. But if there were nothing on your body to alter it, you would be here, right? As I stand and talk and discuss things, I'll stay in the same position, just turn around. It's pretty neutral, right? Slight bend within everything to allow activation, but pretty neutrally stacked through the entire body. So when you're going to rest and you lay inside of a reclining chair where your body's all kinked up, the knees are bent, and the hip flexors are at a slight bend, and your neck is in an unnatural position because you place something behind it, such as a pillow or one of those neck pillows even, that's just altering the entire body. Trying to rest, what you're actually doing is, as I mentioned before, anytime you're breathing, which is what constitutes human life, goes back to the first man biblically, right? Adam, the first human, got breath breathed into him by our living God, and that's what created man. If you do not have any breath, you are not alive in the human form. So anytime you're breathing, which is always if you are alive, you're training a patterning, because it takes basically the entire body to breathe to a degree, because a lot of muscles are stabilizing the rib cage, ideally, again, in a proper internally rotated position where the scapulas are then allowed to wrap out of the way of the rib cage. Ideally, we're breathing in a 360-degree expansion. So it really takes most of the entire body, pretty much the entire body, to breathe. And so even though you're resting and you might be in like an unconscious state, if you're asleep, your body is still doing its thing. That's when I mention how we can't tell our bodies what to do. When you are asleep, your body is still breathing for you, still pumping blood for you. Your body does its thing, and we cannot alter it. I cannot alter my own. None of us can. So when you're sleeping or resting to try to recover, or to try to, with the intention a lot of the time to allow the body to last longer, people will then rest in a position that it doesn't work in. And that does not make sense for any human, universal human design. It just does not. So we do not need to be resting to allow the body to recover, at least not in the way that we think. Sleeping is great. The body does need to sleep. But again, you need to leave it in its position. Altering its position by placing an external thing unnaturally underneath it, such as a pillow, alters its workings through the entirety of every part of it. So you're not resting it at that point. It's trying to sleep, being forced to be in a position it does not operate in. So what you're intending on being rest is actually ingraining through breath, again, training a patterning in an unnatural, externally rotated forward head because of a pillow, literally pressing it forward type of position, right? If you're sitting, like I was saying, in a recliner to try to rest, or sitting down to try to rest, having your hip flexors being placed in a halfway position where they are not active because they're resting on what you're sitting on, then they're actually potentially just becoming chronically tight in a halfway deactivated position, right? They're turned off. The nerve endings of the muscle are literally just resting in a halfway. I've described how the hip flexor has its full range of motion here and its full range of motion all the way up to the chest, and how we should just have naturally strong hip flexors. And I've gone over how I don't stretch, I don't work out. I've made the bold claims that are true, how we should not have to stretch, and we should not have to exercise just to get exercise in. Unless anything major happens, there's times and places to stretch. But again, we just have natural function and natural strength when the body's allowed to. But resting, again, in a position where you're placing the body in a very unnatural position, you're not resting, you're actually weakening your body. And that is truth. Again, zero opinion, universal human design, that's truth. So when you do sleep and when you do rest, if you're going to lay down, lay on something flat. Because again, in a natural, active, working position, it's very close to flat on my back, right? Because I don't sleep with a pillow. I've discussed this, and even when I sleep on my side, I don't sleep with a pillow. And it doesn't even quite make sense to me, other than when your head's laying down to the side, it's kind of reinforcing an internal rotation. But even to me, as of current, it seems a little bit weird to have the neck be able to lay on its side and not get imbalanced through that. But like I say, I do not stretch, that is truth, and I don't sleep with a pillow in any position. So I don't know for sure, at least as of now, how it just doesn't quite make sense, because the neck is on an angle, right? If the thing you're sleeping on is here, and then the head has to meet it, but it really does work. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that's honest. I don't understand that for my own personal experience, because I mean, yes, it does, because then it allows your shoulders to roll in a healthy way, centered ideally, into internal rotation, right? And your pelvis then can tuck, but still your neck's turned. That is something that kind of, I'm not even sure how it's healthy, but I do it personally. So anyway, yeah, just the big thing is when we think about resting the body, it's okay to rest the body, but do it in a natural position for it. Because whether you're pushing the body through exertion or whether it's resting, it wants to be in the position that it wants to be in. And again, we cannot tell our bodies what to do. So, yeah. A lot of times we don't need the rest that we think we need, though. Even if you've been on the earth for quite some time, 85 years old, 90 years old, still, in most all cases, people do not need the rest that they think that they need, that they are trying to get. But throughout the entire day, again, if your clothing is sitting on your body, pulling it in an unnatural position, and you're fighting it just to operate through the day, you'll feel like you need to rest when your body has so much more in it than it's been allowed to even use, because a lot of that energy is just going to try to fight your clothing to keep it where it needs to be sitting for the body's natural, universal function. Again, truth. Yes, so, because that's the big thing. You see a lot of people will sit down because they need to rest or they feel like they need to, but then once they stand up, they're actually in a almost worse off state than when they sat down. Because especially if you sit down immediately, like you're out here playing sports, right? And you are running and you're exercising, and then you go sit down on the sidelines in a chair or on a bleacher that has your knees in a 90-degree position, which is unnatural, and your hips in a 90-degree position, which is unnatural, placing you into external rotation, which you might have already been in anyway because of the clothing you were wearing playing the sports. But then when you get off the bench or off the chair to go maybe get back in for when they like sub you out, now you've taken all of that, like, you know, body's in an active state, you've been playing, and then you sit down while your blood's still pumping and your muscles are very activated and full of blood, and you sit down in a hinged 90 halfway position, and your muscles start to cool down in a position they should not be in anyway. And then you go back to try to play again, you know, if it were this kind of case. And so, yes, it's resting is only rest if it's in the body's position that it is in, that we don't get to decide. So I guess it's good to mention, what I was mentioning throughout this video mostly is just rest in general, right? People go lay on the bed or they sit in a chair after doing anything. But for the sake of like a sports environment, if you were to like get subbed out and rest, you need to be sitting in a position the body sits in. And I've gone over how sitting in modern 2024 chairs is so unnatural for the human body, and I discussed that a little bit here. So sitting like on the ground on the sideline, very natural. Or like laying flat on the ground or just standing is quite a resting state. It really is, because if you're naturally activated, right? I just say it that way because being activated does not mean more energy, it means less. Having your body work in the position it's designed to, if you could put it in the exact position that it was designed to work in, really just as if you weren't wearing any clothing, while still being modest, right? Because then there's nothing altering your body. Your body's using very, 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 very little energy in that case, because that's the position it's designed to work in. So standing is actually a restful state if it's natural. So a lot of misconceptions, and I just, again, shine light on universal truth that is zero opinion of mine. So yes, anyway, I will be designing clothing when that comes. 100% natural materials, minimal clothing, just to allow the body to work as it works to the degree that we can while still having something placed on it, right? Having the pants sit up off of the hips, slightly higher in the front than in the rear, shoulder seams on top sitting behind the shoulders to allow internal rotation to even happen, and just mobility. Shoulder seams at the edges to sit at the edges to, again, allow mobility and just natural function. So if you do ever decide to purchase my clothing, when it comes time for it to be available, please only purchase it if you purchase it in a size that actually fits you, because that is the whole intent. Here in the United States of America, we have a lot of abundance of clothing, too much that is actually just plastic, and we don't need more clothing. We just need our bodies to be able to work. And so that is my whole intent in designing it when it comes. So 100% natural materials will be one of the biggest things. Also, just nowadays there is, as I was saying, plastic. That's what polyester is. We've just lost touch. As I was describing with resting, thinking that sitting in a 90-degree position of the hips is a rest is just false universally. Sleeping with a pillow under the head is just putting your body into external rotation. It's false universally. Thinking that that is going to rest you, no, it is not. It's going to alter your breathing patterns and your entire body's function. So we've just lost touch with natural human function because of the way that the world is in 2024. Again, just universal truth. So again, my name is Evan Strong. Stick around for the clothing if you'd like to. I have tens of hours at this point of content discussing the natural functioning of the human body and its relation with the modern clothing that we have, and little modifications you can do with nothing but just a pair of scissors within the clothing you already own to allow it to just let your body work. Okay, we should not be working around things. The human body is designed the way that it was supposed to be designed, and it's designed to operate very, very, very well, and it does that until it's restricted. So, okay, now you know a little bit about resting and why a lot of times it actually seems like you wake up or like get up after sitting or laying down with the intention of resting, feeling like you're in a worse state than you were before. Because again, if you're not allowing your body to do what it does and you're trying to force it to do something it does not do, it can't rest. It's actually harder on it in that case. So all right, thank you.